Historical criticism, also known as the historical critical method or higher criticism, is a branch of literary criticism that investigates the origins of ancient text in order to understand the world behind the text. The primary goal of historical criticism is to ascertain the text's primitive or original meaning in its original historical context and its literal sense or sensus literalis historicus. The secondary goal seeks to establish reconstruction of the historical situation of the author and recipients of the text. This may be accomplished by reconstructing the true nature of the events which the text describes. An ancient text may also serve as a document, record or source for reconstructing the ancient past, which may also serve as a chief interest to the historical critic. In regard to Semitic biblical interpretation, the historical critic would be able to interpret the literature of Israel as well as the history of Israel. In 18th century biblical criticism, the term higher criticism was commonly used in mainstream scholarship in contrast with lower criticism. In the 21st century, historical criticism is the more commonly used term for higher criticism, while textual criticism is more common than the loose expression lower criticism. Historical criticism began in the 17th century and gained popular recognition in the 19th and 20th centuries. The perspective of the earlier historical critic was rooted in Protestant Reformation ideology, inasmuch as their approach to biblical studies was free from the influence of traditional interpretation. Where historical investigation was unavailable, historical criticism rested on philosophical and theological interpretation. With each passing century, historical criticism became refined into various methodologies used today: source criticism, form criticism, redaction criticism, tradition criticism, canonical criticism, and related methodologies. Historical critical methods are the specific procedures used to examine the text or its historical origins, such as the time, the place in which the text was written, its sources, the events, dates, persons, places, things, and customs that are mentioned or implied in the text. Application of the historical critical method in biblical studies investigates the books of the Hebrew Bible as well as the New Testament. Historical critics compare texts to other texts written around the same time. An example of this is when modern biblical scholarship has attempted to understand the Book of Revelation in its first-century historical context by identifying its literary genre with Jewish and Christian apocalyptic literature. In regard to the Gospels, higher criticism deals with the synoptic problem, the relations among Matthew, Mark, and Luke. In some cases, such as with several Pauline epistles, higher criticism can confirm the traditional understanding of authorship. High criticism understood the New Testament texts within a historical context. That is, that they are not adamantine, but writings that express the traditio. The truth lies in the historical context. In classical studies, the 19th century approach to higher criticism set aside efforts to fill ancient religion with direct meaning and relevance, and devoted itself instead to the critical collection and chronological ordering of the source material. Thus, higher criticism, whether biblical, classical, Byzantine or medieval, focuses on the source documents to determine who wrote it, when it was written, and where. Historical criticism has also been applied to other religious writings from Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, as well as the Quran. Form criticism breaks the Bible down into sections which are analyzed and categorized by genres. The form critic then theorizes on the pericop's Leben, the setting in which it was composed, and, especially, used. Tradition history is a specific aspect of form criticism which aims at tracing the way in which the pericops entered the larger units of the biblical canon, and especially the way in which they made the transition from oral to written form. The belief in the priority, stability, and even detectability of oral traditions is now recognized to be so deeply questionable as to render tradition history largely useless. but form criticism itself continues to develop as a viable methodology in biblical studies.